Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be here. I just needed to let you know that I did something. This, folks, this is what I have done. I have purchased a massive amount of squishies. I will be starting into this squishy makeover trend. And by trend, I mean Moriah Elizabeth's YouTube page takes the game. Her channel is what inspired me to look into these little guys. If you don't know Drax, what are you doing? If you don't know what they are, they're these squishy little things. And they're almost like a stress ball. You squeeze them, they slowly rise back up. So they just feel really, really cool. And they come in such cute little characters and things. One squishy that I started was a little guy about a quarter of the size of this guy. I realized that there's no way I couldn't do them as a pair. So that guy went on pause and I brought in a new squishy for today to take his spot. But for today, I have 3 squishies that I've done for you. I am so excited to get into this. I am so excited for you guys to see what I do with all of these. Look at all of them. Look at the squish. This one sucks, though. Oh, and this little avocado. This one's creepy. Look at those eyes. Bearing into your soul. Drax doesn't like them either. These ones are just so stinking cute, these little mini ones. And there's this marshmallow. I don't even know if I would change that marshmallow. I might just add that to something. I have a big butt. Well, it's peach, but you know. One thing that you will notice is that Drax loves squishies. He loves to steal them and take them away. Oh, yes. Play with the squishies, Drax. Oh, and I got some of these in my purchases. Not really sure what they are. I think they just sit there. Oh, and they came with a bunch of squishies, so I don't know. They're like slimy and gooey. They're kind of cool, but yeah. Well, I am so excited to show you the 3 squishies that I have chosen to do. I definitely started with 3 that I thought were manageable for my first attempt. I made several mistakes. So here we go. Okay, so this is a little panda bread. You can see his face is a little chunky and he's got a bunch of colors on the back. So we're going to start by just ripping this little dude out here. This gives me a little bit more trouble than I anticipate every time. And I actually tore out quite a big chunk when I tore this from this dude's little brain. You'll notice in this that my backgrounds change. And that's because Drax kept stealing my squishies and taking them away. I mean, it was nonstop, why can't I work? Drax, stop it. It's not yours. It actually got to the point where I just couldn't do this downstairs anymore. So I moved my entire office upstairs to a room that I could close. To start with this little guy, I took some sandpaper and roughed up his face a little bit just so that that sticky part wouldn't have any issues holding paint. Then I did some layers of the matte fabric paint in white to put a good layer over. I eventually let it dry and did a couple layers off camera, but this way it hid his little face. I'm saying he, but he ends up being a she, so there's that. Then I thought I was being super creative, and instead of filling the hole, I cut off a chunk because I had this grand idea that I had never seen before. Here I'm just putting a thick layer of the puffy paint over that raw foam so that I can paint over it and have no issues. I'd created this light brown color, kind of the color of a pastry, to just put all over the edge. I could have avoided doing some of the front because I just end up going back over it in white, but I didn't really think that through before I started. This is the first squishy I've ever done, so I did a bunch of layers and just tried to continue to keep adding as I could. Then I put this thick layer of white puffy paint because I knew that this super creative idea I had was going to need a thick layer of frosting. But the joke is on me because once I did a little more digging, Moriah Elizabeth has definitely done this before. I just didn't realize until today. That's why you need to do your research, people, because here I am thinking I'm super creative, came up with this squishy that I love, 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 and then I come to find out that I wasn't as creative as I thought. But nonetheless, I still love it anyways. So here I'm mixing up a paint color, and I want it to be like a jelly or a jam color, kind of like a raspberry filling. So I put that on my edge of my little bite mark. You probably have an idea of what this is now. So here I'm going to go through and I'm going to add these gray dots. And I add these gray dots because when I make sprinkles, I like to give them a bit of a shadow. And I always give them a gray shadow. I don't like using black. It's just a little bit too harsh. So here I'm using the tulip fabric paint mixed with a little bit of the white matte fabric paint to make all different colors of sprinkles. Now it's probably looking a little bit more like something you recognize. Here I've drawn in a little face, and I wanted to give it a little personality. Using my dotting tool, it wasn't quite as small as I wanted, so I had to go back and clean it up because that face is just a little bit awkward. That smile is a little bit crooked, but hey, it's the first one, and I had a good time. Here I added some highlights to the eyes and to the sprinkles. I gave her some purple eyes, and then she was done. Look at that, and she has become a girl. Her name is Pearl the Pop-Tart. So look at little Pearl. She's so cute. Look at that face. So this is her completely finished. I am just obsessed with her. I think she is just the cutest little thing on the face of this planet. She is so happy, even though she has a corner bitten off of her head. She still is a smiling, cute little girl. And she is just so precious. Look at that face. Look at those sprinkles. My next squishy I chose to do was this yellow and pink poop, and I don't like poop. I think it's because I'm a middle school teacher, and there's a lot of potty talk and weird things that the students say, so I just don't really like poop. But I love this squishy. It squishes really nice. It's super cute. So I went in and trimmed up the edges. There was a couple ledges that were just a little bit long, and they stuck out pretty far, so I cleaned those up. And then, of course, gave his face a good scrape. And then from here, I decided to kind of go through and give it a full makeover. So we went through, did white over the top. I didn't have a plan when I started this. I just knew I didn't want it to be poop anymore. So I just decided to do a full white coverage over the top. Once I did a couple layers, I brought in my egg holder, which is the most convenient tool, and I flipped my little poop over and was able to paint it upside down without it falling over. So I would suggest getting a couple of those if you're doing squishies. It really makes it easier so that your paint doesn't get all over your tables. Once I got all the layers on there and it was totally dry, what I didn't realize was how airtight it gets. So you can see when I start to squish it, it really doesn't want to go anywhere. So I had to poke a couple holes in it. Here's where I brought in this little guy. Now this little guy, I don't know if he's a cookie or a wafer or like a weird volleyball. I'm not really sure, but he didn't have a whole lot of design going on that I thought I would really be willing to work with. So I sacrificed him for the good of this squishy video. So his poor little face cut right in half. But don't you worry, we'll come back to that. Now here, I just started cutting out a chunk. At this point, I kind of had an idea and I wanted to just see if I could manipulate it and make it work. So here I'm trimming up my squishy that I just cut in half to try and create this idea. I cut that hole in the side of the original squishy so that the two squishies could be glued together. And so this fabric glue that I use would hold on because that paint might not work. So I took these rubber bands, stuck it on there, got it all glued in, and now my white poop has a butt itself, which is kind of entertaining. But it stayed on there pretty good. I was pretty impressed. So that fabric fusion glue worked really well. Here I sealed up the edge with the puffy paint and then did a whole layer over top of the raw foam. What I didn't kind of realize was how lumpy it was going to stay. I kind of thought the paint would just kind of slide over it and get a little bit more uniform. It didn't, but this is the first learning process I've had. This is only my second squishy, so we live and we learn. Here I'm just adding the red on. I added a couple layers and then moved on to adding sprinkles. Now you can probably see what we have going here. We have a little dollop of whipped cream with a cherry and what's going to be sprinkles. So I added the colors of the rainbow. I added them in a pastel coloring because I just think that that's so much cuter. You can tell I'm using the cherry as my little holding tool as I'm moving my little dollop around. So I'm adding these sprinkles. I put gray down just like I did with Pearl the Pop-Tart because I like to have a shadow and then I like to have a highlight. And there's Drax again. Okay, so here I'm going back in. I'm adding color to my cherry. And then I'm going to go in with a little bit of black mixed in with my red. And I'm going to start to blend in the area that would have been where the stem went. If I was really smart, I would have just trimmed this out in the first place. But again, I had already finished this whole part and then realized that that would have been a better idea. So I just had to kind of manipulate it. Here I took a bobby pin, split it open as far as I could, used my fiance's wire cutters, or something, I'm not sure what they are, and snapped that bobby pin right in half. It did go flying, and I had to go find it. So once I found it, I brought it back, and then I just stabbed, well, I bent it first, and then I stabbed right through the darkest part where the stem would have stuck out based on my shading with another one of my fiance's fishing tools. I'm not really sure. He ties flies, so I don't know what he uses that for, but then I took the bobby pin and shoved it into the hole and it became a cute little cherry stem. So here is my final squishy. This is my dollop. It is so cute. It is white with pastel sprinkles, which I love. It has a cherry on top, well, on the side with a stem, and it just looks so stinking cute on this little egg holder. I mean, it couldn't be a better served little dessert. The cherry and the dollop of whipped cream both have great squish. They squish together and they move, and it's so wonderful. I am just so happy with how this turned out. So this is my more advanced squishy that I wanted to do. Not that it's more advanced in the fact that I added things, because I didn't add anything to it, but I definitely did more of an advanced paint job. This guy is so interesting looking because, well, girl, she is pink, has no nose, is completely white except for like a little eye patch on her face, and then completely pink on the back. So it doesn't make any sense. Her edges were really rough, so I trimmed those up, got rid of all of that excess gunk. Could have even taken off even more, but I didn't. Then I scratched her face and her body because she was this super shiny, slick paint coverage. So I wanted to rough it up so that the fabric paint would stick to it. I realized very quickly there that I didn't touch up the edges, so had to do that and then get back to the painting. So here we go. Now we're continuing to add that layer. I kept all of the paint on the front and then turned around and did the back. I think I did 3 or 4 coats in total just to make sure she was completely covered. So once the front was done, I flipped it over to the back And then I did the same thing, just making sure to get it all covered, doing a couple layers, and then decided I don't know if I want this to be a girl anymore because I made the Pop-Tart a girl. So now we're going to make it into a boy. So here I'm wanting to make it a pastel yellow. I decided it was too light, so I ended up brightening up the yellow a bit. And once I finished, I just kind of realized that that wasn't the right direction to go. So I completely covered it in a light orange, which on this view looks a little bit more like a weird skin color, but it's not, it's orange. So I do the front, then I went through and did the back, got distracted, made sure Drax was enjoying himself as well, and then eventually got back to business. It's so hard to stay focused when Drax is in my art room because he just wants to play all the time. And his favorite thing to do, he gets my ponytails and he brings them. Oh, see, he's talking to me. Hi, Drax. And he brings them up so that I'll play with him. So I'll play with him for a little bit and then I kind of get back to doing what I need to do. And then he hits them at me and then he wants me to play with him more. So eventually I have to just get back to work. Otherwise, I would get nothing done. So here he is distracting himself while I'm getting my layer done on the back of my hamster. Now, this hamster was decidedly going to be a boy, and I wanted to name him Herman. I wanted him to be blue. That's originally what I had drawn out. But then on the bottom of this squishy, it says Sunny Squishies. So I thought we had to name it Sunny, which is why I made the transition to yellow and orange for the colors. So this is Sunny. He's a boy. He's a handsome little fella. We're giving him a little old man cul-de-sac on the top of his head. And we're going to split him into colors. So we're going to do more of a chipmunk style hamster because I had a hamster when I was in college. Its name was Baby Dot. It was super cute. And it had this same coloring. So it had the brown, tan kind of color, not brown, but you know what I mean, like the skin color, tan, cute little hamster coloring. And it had the cream colored spots all over it. So I just took my time, went around the edges, figured out the spot that I wanted. I wanted him to have these big chunky cheeks because hamsters like to pack their food in there. And then I made sure to go through and paint his little belly yellow because I just loved the coloring of my hamster that I had in college. So I wanted to try and replicate that as much as possible. It took me so long to do these little details because I wanted to make sure that I got them as close to perfect as possible so I didn't have to do as many touch-ups. This video is time-lapsed. So this is how slow I was actually going. This is like triple the speed of what I was actually painting in. So that tells you how much time I was taking on these little details. I did have to go through and do 3 or 4 layers, of course. Here I'm adding the little insides of his ears. Usually those are a darker color, but you know, we do what we do for whatever reason. So I added those little things in there. And then I added a little dot on the butt because that's what Baby Dot had. That's why I named her Baby Dot. And since his name is Sunny, I decided to make that dot into a little sunshine. Also, if for some reason I can't remember its name, now I'll remember. And then we move on to start painting the carrot. And of course, Drax was not done. He wanted to play. He was determined to be a part of this video. He's trying to get famous. I don't know what his deal is. He's sitting here talking to me now while I voice over. And he just is always wanting to be in the mix. So here I'm trying to paint the carrot and he is just being a little butthead, just knocking it over. And this kept spilling, which is why I didn't put it into a paint palette or onto a paint palette. I just wanted to paint out of the lid because I've been having trouble with these just kind of exploding once I open them. There's Drax chewing on my paintbrush. You really can't get done. He's like having a small child. Drax, that's enough. He also had orange on his paws and his mouth until I cleaned him up after the video, because he just kept pawing at it and then getting his little claws in there, and then he'd rub his face. And, you know, it's just one of the things that you deal with when you have a Drax. He just wants to be involved in everything. He hates being left out. So here I'm going in with my green, and I took a light green and did the little part that sticks out of the earth. Then I took the orange and mixed a little bit of pink in there because I didn't want it to be super red. I just wanted it to be a little bit of a darker orange. So I added some pink to orange to put in the little creases where the detail lines were on the carrot. And I really like how it turned out because it was a much more subtle adjustment than if I would have done black or a red orange. That pink was just enough to give it the detail that I really wanted the carrot to have. See, Drax agrees. Then I took my light green color, I mixed it with a bit of dark green so that I could add in some of the details on that little grassy part at the top of a carrot. I don't know what it's called. But I added that in. I started just along the base and then brought it up where the lines were actually placed on the squishy, and then just added some more lines that came up through the top. I got a little bit excited and did some of the lines that were up towards the top and just realized how terrible of an idea it was, so I scratched that. Here I drew in the face, and then I wanted him to look super thankful, like he was so excited that he was getting this carrot. So I gave him some squinty eyes, an open mouth, a little brown nose. I gave him some detail on his little teeth, decided his mouth looked terrifying, and made some adjustments to that later. But here I'm giving him some nose holes so he can breathe. Probably an unnecessary detail, but I did it anyways. Why not? Then I went in and started adding some details into the eyes. At this point, I really liked the direction I was going. I didn't feel bad about any of it. Once I get to the end, you'll kind of see why I'm thinking twice about that. I just didn't do a very good job of lining his face up. I drew it on there, and when I looked back, it looked like I was doing it pretty even. I thought that the face and the eyes were looking okay, but he looks a little off. But nonetheless, here I am adding the details. I added some highlights to the eyes, realized that black hole for a mouth was terrifying, so I went in, added some pink to give him the little inside part of his mouth, and then went back in again and added some other color to kind of define. Here I'm adding his little hairs by his ears so that there's just a cute little detail. And then because he was supposed to be Herman the hamster and he was supposed to be blue, I decided to give him blue eyes because it just made the most sense. I am sad to report that his face is definitely not even. And you can even see it right here. You can see how off they are. But what can you do? It was my first bigger animal squishy, and I just tried to give it too much detail. But look at how stinking cute he ended up. His face might be a little funky, and his theme might be not necessarily your style, but I am so happy with how stinking cute he is with his little dot on his butt like my baby dot. These are all 3 of my squishies, and I am just so happy with how they turned out. I think that they are so stinking cute, and I had the most fun doing this. Like, I could not express more joy than I do right now. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I had so much fun painting these squishies, and I just hope that you guys continue to follow along with me. So make sure that you like my video and that you subscribe to my channel so you can get updates every Friday on the new things that I am doing. Last week, you'll have to check out my denim painting episode, and then this week we had the squishies. Next week I'm trying to decide if I'm going to do pour painting, or I just got a hydro flask, so drawing on that or painting on that. You guys can comment down at the bottom and let me know what you want to see. I am into doing all the crafts, so let me know what you want to see. I love suggestions. Please, again, make sure to like, and of course, please be sure to subscribe. See you guys on the other side.